So this is trip 2, Morocco, east across the Atlas Mountains, and day 1, but we cheated a little bit today. We got a taxi all the way up to Tadert. So even with cheating, getting a taxi, it's still not that easy up at 1,500 metres. Eastern Morocco is a land of Kasbahs, fossils, and prehistoric petroglyphs. The pink city, Marrakesh itself, is full of history. But we were cycling east over the Atlas Mountains and then along the route of 1,000 Kasbahs. Our route would take us from Marrakesh across the high Atlas of the Tizi and Tichka Pass to Telouet, Ait Ben Haddou, Ouarzazate, Skoura, Boumandou Dadis and the Dadis Gorge, Tingir and the Todra Gorge, then across the Jebel Sahro to Al Nif, Tazarine, Nakob, Agdez, back to Ouarzazate, and back across the high Atlas to Marrakesh. A Kasbah is a castle made of mud and straw, and these walls are called pisé and are extremely thick, which keeps the Kasbahs cool in summer and warm in winter, and meant they could withstand a siege. Kasbahs were built and owned by wealthy families. There are so many remaining in this part of Morocco, hence the nickname Route of 1,000 Kasbahs. Inside they are luxurious, and some of them have been turned into hotels, which we later stayed in. Many of the Kasbahs have not been renovated and are in ruins. We're in Telouet, and in the distance you can see the old Kasbah of the Pasha Glaoui, who was also a Pasha in Marrakesh and was so powerful he rebelled against the king but failed and had to live in exile, and all his possessions were taken away. But that's the remains from the 1950s of his Kasbah, where 300 artisans had to work on all the vast number of rooms. Curiously, inside the tiling showed both the 6-pointed Jewish star on the left and the 8-pointed Islamic star on the right together. Our next Kasbah was in Ait Ben Haddou, where many films have been made. This Kasbah is on a high plateau, and you have to climb up steps to get to the top. Sunset turns the earth in the desert a deep red. Now we're off to Ouarzazate. We've just come up and a beautiful downhill in the distance. Ouarzazate is the location of many films too, but on this leg of our journey we were only passing through. Today we're finally staying in a Kasbah in Skoura. The walls are actually quite rough to touch. After a total of about 200k cycling so far, I relaxed that afternoon by the pool in the Kasbah. In Skoura we saw a Kasbah renovated into a museum. This one, the Kasbah Amridal, had intricate designs and shapes in all the walls. It had been built in the middle of the Palmery, visible here in the distance. Next on the itinerary were the two gorges, the Dadis Gorge and the Todra Gorge. We passed some beautiful scenery on the way. The Dada's Gorge has weird rock formations known as the monkey's fingers. But I thought the Todra Gorge was even more impressive. "30k up into the gorge, we found a cafe for lunch." What are you having for lunch, Sean?
I'm having a delicious brochette au mouton from the mountains.
There was only one table in this cafe and our lunch was very simple but lovely. Today we're going across part of the Jebel Sahara to Alnif to try and find Paleozoic fossils. After the gorges, the terrain was mostly pretty flat again. The Jebel Sahara is part of the eastern anti-Atlas range near the Sahara. It is barren and poor. Although the current king is doing a lot for Morocco, illiteracy in rural areas is still about 50%. The anti-Atlas, however, is the best place in the world to find trilobite fossils. We went to the shop of a local geologist, Mr. Ihmadi, who arranged to take us on a tour. He handed us each a little geology hammer, and we walked up a riverbed looking for our own fossils. The trilobites are found in a layer of rock which appears pale halfway up this mountain. As hundreds of millions of years ago, this whole area used to be under the sea. And amazingly, we started to find our own fossils. We found this one in the rock.
Part of it.
And we found all these just lying in the riverbed. These trilobites are 400 million years old. They were the very first creatures to develop eyes, which were compound eyes, similar to those of a fly. Back in the shop there were some amazing specimens. And I even got to hold a fossilized dinosaur vertebra.
Fossilized. The price here depends on...
Back on the road next day we were off to Tazarine, which is home to prehistoric rock carvings or petroglyphs. The petroglyphs are an hour's drive on a non-tarmac road from Tazarine, followed by a short walk up a hill, at a place called Eit Uazik, which is the largest of many similar sites throughout Morocco. The petroglyphs can be seen carved on rocks, which are just lying exposed on the top of the hill. There is a very knowledgeable guide at the site who speaks perfect English, and who was able to explain to us the meaning of each of the carvings. These petroglyphs are prehistoric, dating back 5,000 years, to a time when this part of Morocco was fertile savanna. They depict various slings and traps used for hunting animals.
Game, lots of time this place. Yeah, fishing net, hunting net.
As well as all the animals themselves. There were antelope-like creatures with huge antlers, rhino, giraffes, a chameleon, ostriches, and even elephants in this part of Morocco, and an unidentifiable creature with a bushy tail. This petroglyph showed a gazelle on the horns of another animal, and this one showed a monkey on the left, with what seemed like a baby elephant inside a buffalo. This hillside may have been a sacred site, as there were large communal graves called tumulus. There was even a carving depicting the spiral of time, which I have rarely seen elsewhere. It seems these prehistoric cultures already knew that time is not linear.